In this video, I'm going to share some writing advice from some of the world's most famous authors, from those who have actually been there and done it. Don't forget to like and subscribe.
It's hard for me. I'm not disciplined that way. I wouldn't say it's a compulsion. I would say it's my job and I have to do it to pay my mortgage, and I try to do it in a way that feels, I mean, I like doing it sometimes, and I can't think of anything I'd really rather do, but it's hard. I feel like when I'm doing it, I would like it to be something that's meaningful and that feels honest to me. I don't want to do something that puts what I feel is garbage into the world. So in that sense, I mean, it's important to me, but it's not like this joyous experience or some sort of like, you know, I don't think of myself that way. I think of myself sort of staring off into space a lot or looking at stuff online while I'm trying to write. It's mostly what it looks like.
You know, I think that there is this kind of, you know, Hemingway-esque, kind of Burroughs-esque kind of sort of myth about the writer as this kind of outlaw figure, kind of hard-drinking kind of outlaw figure, and you know, I think that you know, and it's quite a glamorous kind of myth, but basically it's a boring job. It's about hard work. It's about sitting in front of a computer until your eyes are ready to fall out your head. You know, it's just kind of boring and lonely kind of graft and toil. You know. And unless you really enjoy, unless you really vibe on doing that kind of thing, it's maybe something that you is not for you, you know. So I think that trying to encourage people, but it's the basic thing about writing being rewriting. You know, it's like, you know, you just keep at it and keep chipping away and all that. So it was and not really being swayed by the idea of superficialities, the idea that you kind of write a bestseller or, you know, this kind of nonsense. Or the idea that you kind of that there is this intrinsic glamour in the writer's life and all that, you know, there isn't really. I mean, it's kind of the sort of interesting thing about being successful is that you do get to travel and go to all these literary festivals and sort of hang out with different people and stuff like that. But it's just such a small part of it.
When you're writing a story, usually the first thing you do is you have the whole story generally in your mind. I might say, the story I'm going to write is about a fellow whose best friend is killed, and he's going to avenge his death, and he's going to find out that the person who killed his best friend is his own brother, whom he loves. Now, what's he going to do? Kill his brother? What a predicament for him. So that might be the idea for the story. Then, to make it a page-turner, I would then sit down and say, okay, what's going to happen? First of all, I have to make the reader care about the hero. So I'm going to show that he's a good guy or an interesting guy, or he's got some characteristics that you enjoy reading about. Then I'm going to get him in trouble. And the more he tries to do the right thing, the more he gets in trouble. So hopefully the reader will keep worrying, how's he going to get out of this one? And then the surprise later when he finds out his own brother is the one who killed his best friend. What is he going to do? Well, I would like to know what he'd do myself, so I hope the reader would like to know. So again, it's just a matter of saying to yourself, I'll open up with a situation, then I have to figure, how can I make the situation become complex? How can I have surprising developments which become big problems for the hero? Because the hero has to be confronted with big problems, with what seem to be insurmountable problems, so that at the end, if and when he finally triumphs, you enjoy it because you've been suffering with him all the way, hoping he'll win out in the end.
What I've started doing recently is I've looked at the experience of getting lost in an internet hole. Like you start looking up like Louis XIV, and then it ends up on like Sofia Coppola, and then that turns into an article about France, and then suddenly you just get lost in this lateral experience. And so plot-wise, I try and create lateral experiences that you probably weren't expecting. I mean, they've got these books now, they've got programs, like write your own novel, and they're so formulaic, it's terrifying. And like, you know, by this point, you should be at the bottom of the third act, and your character should be blah, 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 which I can only imagine leads to the most dreadful kind of book. So I try and take that yen for lateral thinking, for lateral experience, and turn that into a lateral plot line. And that's deliberate, and I think it does work. Writers are very superstitious, and I'm very superstitious, and I never use a notepad, like an official notepad, because it's corny or something. So I asked for a piece of paper wherever I go. Do you have a pen? And I write things down, I shove it in my pocket, and then I get back home and there's a jar, and I just put all my notes in there. And then, and I say notes, they're just words that seemed interesting, situations that sort of struck me as compelling. And then I'll have this experience, I guess it's like getting pregnant, where you'll just be somewhere one day and like, oh, well, that's the next book. Like, oh, I'm pregnant with a book. And that maybe goes on for a year and a half, depending on how long it is, but the book comes to you. I don't have to go to the book. It'll always just come to me.
Common trap. I suppose a kind of egotism, self-importance, inability to look out of themselves. And I think it's important to look very closely at the world, everything happening around you. And sometimes for young people, it's difficult to do that. And the other thing is to get too attached to some of the things that you think are clever that you're doing. I think cleverness has its spots, its place in the world perhaps, but the burning need to do it is what makes for good work. The wish to do it doesn't really help you. It's when it's absolutely necessary. So when I talk to young writers, I mostly tell them, don't do it. Don't be a writer. It's a terrible way to live your life. There's nothing to be gained from it but poverty and obscurity and solitude. So if you have a taste for all those things, which means that you really are burning to do it, then go ahead and do it. But don't expect anything from anybody, because the world doesn't owe you anything, and no one is asking you to do it. And I suppose it's this feeling of accomplishment that young people feel sometimes. They say, well, of course my book should be published. Of course I should be able to earn a living out of this. Well, it just doesn't work that way.
I suppose one can say that, I suppose every novelist feels, that every young novelist feels that it's great fun. The writing of fiction is great fun at first, because you're inventing characters, you're manipulating them, a sense of power, a sense of delight in manipulating language too. But as time goes on, and when one has, composed one's 30th novel, one realizes that one has been playing with fire all the way along. It's a very difficult form, a very difficult art form indeed, and the disciplines, the techniques involved are tremendously difficult. But I think that nobody can write without discipline. You can't say, let's wait for the inspiration to come. It doesn't come. It doesn't work.
So do you sit down at a desk every morning?
Yes, sit down at the desk.
Every single morning?
Every single morning, including weekends, yes.
This morning?
Oh, this morning I'm in London. I'm on a sort of holiday. I'm with you. I mean, this is not a working day.
Do you rework what you've written? Do you go back over it?
I don't rework it. The way I write has much to do with the way I write music. You see, look at it this way, a very simple way of looking at it. The music paper, especially scoring paper, is very expensive. You can't afford to spoil anything. You'd better get it sorted out in your head, in your ear, in your inner ear, before you get it on paper. Like Sibelius. Sibelius heard the whole symphony and then wrote it down without making any changes. I like to get a page organized.
And the book?
Acceptable. And then the next page, and the next page, and so on.
And do you think the whole book through before you...
I don't think anybody can. I think one can roughly proceed up to a point. I think, wasn't it Ian Forster who said that in Passage to India, he got it as far as the Malabar Caves, but not further. And Joyce said, don't work too much at thinking what the characters are going to do. They'll take over.
But why writing? Why not painting?
I realize now that I'm a writer. That's why.
Uh-huh.
But I had to come to that conclusion in my own erroneous and surreptitious kind of reasoning, you know?
Uh-huh.
That's what I'm supposed to do. Yeah. I can't draw a straight line. I have no talent. I'm probably the most untalented person that's ever lived. I don't have any natural abilities. None whatsoever.
How can you be a writer and not have natural ability for writing?
By sitting down and writing every day of your life until you've learned how to write.
Well, the chapter outline is usually one paragraph. What's going to happen next? What's going to happen in this chapter? Or a couple of sentences, 3 sentences maybe. You do that to pacing is so crucial. I'm always concerned with pacing. And so to do that, you've got to know what's in the chapters and are they too long, too short, whatever. That's a constant challenge every day is how long do you keep a chapter? When do you break it up? When do you give the reader a break? When do you switch scenes completely or go to a different subplot? That's why the outlining is so important, because you got to work that stuff out ahead of time before you start the book. Because if you always know where you're going, it's hard to get lost. And writers are notorious for having a brilliant idea, jumping into the novel, writing like crazy for a year, and then realize they don't know where to go next, or what the end is, and they've written themselves into a corner. That is fairly common in this business, and I'm not going to do that. I want to know what the ending is. And so I keep the chapter summaries fairly succinct, and I'm always tinkering with them. Once I have the outline finished, it doesn't stay like that. I'll start the book. If the outline works, I'll start the book. But I'm always tinkering with the outline too. It gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and by the time it's finished, I can't even read the thing. It's so messy. But that's how I handle that.
The other thing is, I do wonder sometimes whether having so many writers sequestered on campuses across the United States means that writers are cut off from cities or from countryside or from original places. When I think of an older generation that includes Saul Bellow or Roth or famously Updike, who sort of quit his Manhattan, New Yorker life to go and live in a small town in New England. That kind of engagement, I think, could come under attack if too many writers are just sort of English professors.
Well, I was broken out of work, so, and that was the basic
helps.
proposition. That really helped. It had to work. And I played a trick on myself, I think, inside my head, which was to be absolutely confident. Of course, I had no doubt that it would work. I thought it would be like night follows day. Write the book, it would work. But that was really a psychological trick, just to stop myself from panicking. Because really, it's like, to say I'm going to make my living writing fiction is like saying I'm going to get hit by lightning twice on the same day I win the lottery. It's not very likely. But I didn't pay any attention to that. I just thought, yeah, sure, get the words down, it'll work.